Hello and welcome back to the Librarian of the Rings. Today we're going to be reviewing the Hobbit Pop-Up book with illustrations by John Howe. So we're going to review this today. Now, I've mostly been doing Rings of Power stuff lately because Rings of Power is coming out, but as of the time of this recording, yesterday was Hobbit Day. So I wanted to do something a little bit more Hobbit focused in recognition of Hobbit Day, and what could be better than doing some kind of edition of The Hobbit. And the last Rings of Power episode that came out was episode 6, which was an interesting episode, but I didn't find myself having a lot to say about it. So we're going to take a break from that and get back into book reviews. And I thought, what better thing to review than this really unique version of The Hobbit. Now, if you have been watching this channel for a while, then you're used to probably seeing this book because it's normally behind me in the background. But today we've got it out and we're going to take a look at it and really review it. Now, this book was published in 1999, so it's been a good 25 years since this book came out. And there aren't that many copies available anymore. So we'll talk a little bit more about that and where you can actually pick one up if you want one, and how I came into possession of this one. But let's talk a little bit about the publishing information here. This was published by HarperCollins. The text, of course, is by JRR Tolkien, and the illustrations, like I mentioned, are by John Howe. You probably know John Howe's work, even if you don't know who he is, because he was one of the concept designers on the Lord of the Rings films, the Hobbit films, and the Rings of Power series, as well as doing many Tolkien illustrations over the course of his life. He and Alan Lee probably do the most Tolkien illustrations of anybody out there. So the artwork in this book is done by him. And for a pop-up book, in addition to an illustrator, you also need a paper engineer if the illustrator isn't engineering their own pop-ups. So John Howe didn't engineer the pop-ups for this. That was done by a man named Andrew Barron, who did a great job doing the engineering to make this book pop, which is of course the point of a pop-up book. So what do you get inside this book? Well, you get 5 scenes. So pop-up books notoriously are fairly big, but don't have a lot of pages in them, and that's because they take so much room to make the pop-ups happen. Now, the 5 scenes that you get in this book are The Unexpected Party, Riddles in the Dark, Flies and Spiders, Bilbo and Smaug, and the Battle of 5 Armies. So all iconic scenes, of course, but there are a lot of iconic scenes that are left out of this book. Now, as far as text goes, each scene does have pullouts where you can pop these out and you can actually read text from the book. Now, as you go through, there are a few interactive elements throughout this book. You can like open a door and find Gandalf, and you can spin a wheel and reveal Bilbo. You can pull a little tab and make the spider actually kind of like move and make a little noise. So there are some interactive elements to this. If you are really into pop-up books, there are a lot more impressive pop-up books out there. That being said, this book does have some pretty impressive pop-ups, and they are really nice illustrations of the scenes that they're trying to depict. So honestly, I feel really lucky to have a copy of this. I picked this up at like a book sale or a garage sale somewhere along the line a few years ago. I don't even remember exactly where, but I know I picked it up for just a few dollars. And these books, if you find one online, are going from anywhere from $50 to $250 depending on their condition. So from $50 for a not so great one, all the way up to $250 for one in its original shrink wrapping. Now, when it came out in 1999, this was retailing for about 20 bucks. So they definitely aren't that available, and there are people who are willing to pay for them out there. So let's talk about whether or not I enjoy this book. I do enjoy this book quite a bit. I think the illustrations and pop-ups and those kind of interactive features are nice. I did use this book as the initial like Tolkien book to introduce my daughter into the world of Middle-earth. So we did start with that. Now, when you are reading this book, if you're reading it with a child who doesn't know the story, then you are going to have to fill in some gaps along the way, because those pull-out tabs with the text on them only contain so much information, and they aren't really like summaries of the text. They are like direct quotations from the text. And so you're going to have to fill in some information, because obviously with only 5 scenes, there's a lot that just isn't there. So you'll have to fill in a few points along the way. So I enjoy this book. I like having it around, but would I recommend it for you? Well, here's where we get into how much it costs. It's just really expensive for what you get. You have to pay anywhere from $50 to $250 to get 5 scenes from The Hobbit, and I'm not sure if that's worth it for most people. Now, if you are a collector of Tolkien memorabilia and you can find a copy for a good price, then I think it will be worth it to you. Obviously, I happened to stumble across one for a really good price, and I was able to snatch that up. If you're in that situation where you're in a book sale, a used bookstore, something like that, and you see one of these copies for just a few dollars, then of course, snatch it up right away. That's going to be a great purchase for you. If you really love to have everything that's Tolkien, and especially you love The Hobbit the way I do, The Hobbit is one of my absolute favorite of all Tolkien's books, perhaps my favorite, then this may be worth it to you, particularly if you're a person who regularly spends a couple $100s on Lord of the Rings or Tolkien memorabilia. If you're that kind of person, then it probably is worth picking up to you just because it is a really cool piece to have. And I don't really know how many people have this in their collections. So those are kind of my thoughts on this book. Again, I really like it, but it is expensive if you try to pick it up right now. If you already have a copy, then that's awesome. Maybe you got one way back around the turn of the century when it came out. Maybe you got one and you still have it. And I would love to hear from you down in the comments. Let me know if you have this book or if you have seen a copy of it and what you thought of it. That's going to do it for us today. Until next time, farewell wherever you fare. May your ears receive you at your journey's end.